Welcome back to this week's episode. I have an amazing guest with me today. Her name is Kelly Edmonds, and Kelly is one of the magical energy healers and messengers of the world. And I'm super excited to share her with you today. She's been healing others energetically for over 30 years and has the ability to move energy, to work with higher vibrations, and channel divine messages that are specific for each of the people that she works with. And what I love about that is through this work, she's helping people release those old shackles, the ones that bind us, the ones that keep us stuck. And she really helps them reconnect to their soul and infuse a new sense of vibrancy and life meaning, purpose, destiny, all those beautiful things. And her work in the world brings healing for those with debilitating conditions, those who are underneath the barriers of fear, anxiety, depression, and she helps them raise their vibration to live a wonderful, fulfilling life, providing divine messages for their destiny and answering life's larger questions. Welcome, Kelly. I would love to know as we dive in, one, just what even got you started with using your gifts in this way?
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here, Michelle. I really appreciate it. Well, I come from a traditional, I'm Canadian, but I come from also a very traditional Celtic Irish background on my father's side. And just, being psychic and just understanding there's a whole other realm around us besides the physical world was just natural in our family. And people's dreams usually came true. And so it was just a conversation we always had. It was just a knowingness that we always had. I was sort of a quirky little kid. Like I'd pick up stones and say they were magic. So I obviously had the ability, the intuitive psychic ability, and love working with my hands. And then school started and reality kicked in and the structures kicked in, and I went on my way that I was supposed to. The structure I was put into the structure. It wasn't until I was about 30 years ago, I was in my early 30s, that I decided I was going to take a year off work. I was an accountant, hated it. I was an accountant and I wanted to take a year off work, and I wanted to go to school and study philosophy. So I obviously wanted to get into sort of the more liberal thinking and exploration of human behavior and humankind. But it fell into the very sort of year that New Age movement happened. So every born again hippie came out. We studied Buddhism. We studied native, indigenous ways of spirituality. We discovered crystals. It was like kindergarten for anyone that was wanted to explore spirituality. And at that time, I met this lady. Her name is Antoinette, and she became my Reiki master. And when you get initiated into the Reiki to become a Reiki practitioner yourself, which I am, she opens you. She opens your channels, and I started to understand at the time what all these channels meant, like your meridian, like your energy channels all through your body. I'll never forget that session when she opened me. It was like, holy cow. And I could just see this like little butterfly fly out of my head. Like it was just bizarre. And I went and I felt lighter. And so it's been a 30-year process. I spent like full time for a year. I did hands-on healing. I did energy healing, which is just above the body. I did tarot card reading. So it was actually my occupation. Then I finally had to go back to work, the real work, and make some serious coin. And I fell back into, working in the corporate world as an accountant. And then I slowly became a teacher because I wanted to teach bookkeeping and accounting, especially because now entrepreneurship just blossomed in the early 90s. And so I wanted to help people like set up their businesses, financially, that is, and do their books. That led to a whole another 20 years of pursuing three degrees in education. My final one being a doctorate in education, where I design online courses for companies worldwide. And it was very, very creative. But in the meantime, I've sort of like lost my whole connection to the spiritual world. So about 14, 15 months ago, I made that decision, like, now I'm retired now. I thought, I just want to get back into that again. I want to get into spirit, more spiritual development, more personal development. So it was a life choice.
Yeah.
And boy, did it take off. I was like, my whole sensibility, my whole understanding, my whole daily practices, my gifts of seeing and messaging and healing just exploded. So that's where I am right now. And I'm trying to find a way of how I want to be able to help the world. And I haven't really nailed that down yet. I was doing a lot of one-on-ones last year where we did live sessions online, like we're doing right now with you, like on Zoom, and it was very, very powerful. It's a beautiful gift I have, but it just feels like very restrictive. Like it takes a lot of, it's an hour and a half, and you have to prepare an hour after, and like it consumes your entire day. And I'm trying to find a way to help more people at a reasonable cost. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to now design healing products that people can download, and they have healing energy infused in them. It's like it's really cool. So that, and it's all guided. Every word I say, be it on social media or in any of my healing products, is all channeled, which
Mm.
is, I just know that I'm sometimes weird stuff comes out, and it's like, should I say that? Or even during my one-on-one sessions when I'm healing my clients, like, should I say that? But whenever I do, it's always bang on, right? People like get it. So yeah, that's where I am right now, trying to find a way to use my gifts, but in a larger scale.
I love that. And I think one of the most important things with that process is being willing to be with yourself now and just move through the next thing. Like, and as we do that, I feel like the next idea, the next inspiration comes because we've been in action versus deciding, oh, maybe not this, not this, right? And we can get so
Mhm.
caught up in that. But it's the trust in where that leads you next, what really makes your heart kind of sing in that excitable way of like, I love this experience.
Yeah.
And I want to just note back for a second. I actually didn't know that you were in accounting, or maybe I forgot, which is so funny. I spent a good portion of my adult life accounting. I wasn't an accountant, but I was self-taught. And so I did all the bookkeeping, all of the HR, all of the things as our company, my husband and I had one for almost 30 years, really grew. And I was like, learn by doing. When I was ready to give up some things, I hired people in. And so it was really exciting to do that and then teach from that level, like, and then be the leadership part of that. I had no idea that that was something that we had connected as well, which is really cool. The other thing is, I am also a Reiki master teacher, so I understand what it's like to get the attunement, the receiving of the energy. And what fascinates me is like, when I look back now, all the things I didn't know, but how that process really helped my brain understand what was going on. And I'm curious for you, since you grew up with some of this background and being around the traditions, right? When you started remembering or coming back to this work, did it feel like it just kind of mm, time jumped right back into where you are, or was it feeling rusty to get back into the daily practices? I asked that because I didn't have those years prior. Mine's been like, I think like the last 7 years, and it's just been like boom, 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 boom into the next things, which I'm really grateful for. But I just, my own curiosity in your experience with that and welcoming that conversation into energetics and then helping people heal. How did that unfold for you once you started coming back? You said it worked really fast. Did it change in how you wanted to do it moving forward?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I just remembered something. First of all, the supernatural world was just so normal to me, right?
Mm,
I could always read people. I could always, I always knew I had to protect myself because I can pick up energy like a sponge, right?
mm,
Picks up water. So I've just been able to do that, and there was a certain lightness about it that I really liked.
mm,
What compel me to seek out uh, to practice Reiki was my hands. I kept getting, they were singing. My hands wanted to do something, and I think, is it art? Is it, do I make statues out of clay? Like, what is it? And when I discovered Reiki, it was like, holy cow! The energy just came through my hands. So that was new, but super exciting to move that energy through and know what to do with that. and the power that came out through my hands. I had to learn how to manage it so I didn't overload my clients as well. But the whole woo woo ness of it, that was sort of something I was very used to. Now, 30 years ago, there was very much a stigma if you got into this woo woo work.
Mhm.
And it was more like women were considered witches. You know,
Yeah.
you're probably part of some coven, I think they're called coven.
Heaven.
And, uh, you know, or you're a warlock if you're a man. And that's how people saw it, like from the outside, right? And so you were much more quiet about it, and you just sort of worked in circles, quiet circles about this is what I do, and so people would connect with you. So there was that whole element as well. I don't know how much it would have taken off, but the new age movement was just exploding. There was like new age shops, and there was new age services, and um, but yeah, I think that was the new one. So it didn't feel weird at all, except the oppressing views of society, which I find is gone now.
Yeah.
Everybody wants weirdness, right? They're tired of the traditional
Mm.
status quo.
Mhm. I love that. So, how are these new energies transpiring in and around the world? Because we're having a conversation before we start recording about how it it seems more and more people are awakening to their gifts, are awakening to even new experiences of energy without definition. They really don't understand. But I think that coming to that head with the mental health and the mental can't think of the word I'm thinking of, the abundance of how mentally strained we became during those years of COVID. I think it's really been opening people up to something more. It seems like we ask the question, is this all there is? Or who am I really? Who am I now? I'm not this, right? And it begins to just open this pathway of breadcrumbs in everyone's own unique way. And so I think that conversation of, the bigger picture, how those energies are transpiring in the world could be a valid conversation for us to address as far as, yes, we're expanding, but I think the world is too, and overall consciousness within the planet is beginning to shift. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I have a take on it. It's very much universal. And so let me explain. I work with guides and spiritual beings every day,
Mm.
and all realms. It's getting higher and higher. And so they deliver these messages, and that's why I call myself a messenger.
Yeah.
And the messages are, I posted something not too long on my own social media about um, the universe is not idealistic. It's not perfect paradise. It's not utopia at all. The only thing keeping it in a positive realm is all the good that's happening in our particular world. There's other worlds, there's other planets, right? But it was happening in our particular world. But it's not perfect. There are rips, if you want to call it, and energy pockets and distortions in the universe that are not beautiful and wonderful and utopia like. That's where evil starts, right? What we
Right.
call evil here on earth.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing on earth right now is a whole surge coming forward of people. They're the universal energies and powers to be, if you want to call it that, are waking everybody up, and it's time to start to transcend.
Yeah.
And we need to do that in order to conquer evil. I really think one of my biggest things, I keep getting this message from myself, is to correct evil. It's like, well, how am I going to do that? It's a little overwhelming, but it's about my messages that I send out to people, and yourself too, right? We're helping people awaken. We're helping people really find the beautiful center within themselves and working from that, and stop listening to the garbage out there, right? That's old. It's not helping you evolve. You still have to live in this world. It's still real. You can't like go around and completely ignore it and just be this airy fairy, wearing crystals around your neck and living off beans. You still have to live in a world. You still have family. You still have a function here in this world. But that's what's happening, I believe, and it's evolutionary. It's not like it's not reacting, it's just that's what's happening right now. And I
Yeah.
think we can conquer evil by everyone awakening and doing good in the world. It's
Right.
that simplistic.
Yeah, what kept coming through for me was being the light. That's how it's conquered. The more we can be our true remembering of who we are, that love frequency, that light that shines through, the more that that ripples out. And love is the strongest transmuter of emotion.
Yes.
And so it's really is exactly what you're saying. I feel like we live here in this life. We have access to the esoteric. It's both of us. It's all of it together that is our experience in this human body. And that this is a beautiful vessel that is intended to be in a coherent flow state. And we spend so much of our time separate. Mind has made meanings that keep us separate from the things we want to experience. But we're literally here as a spirit in a human body to experience emotion, physical touch, all of the senses, all of the savoring of the taste of food or the smells or the sights, right? Using all of those senses. But it's not only that, it's also being aware of allowing the mind and the heart to come together so that spirit can flow through without the blockage, without the disruption, without the shackles, like you were saying in your bio, right? You can feel the constraints of that. And you may not have the words, the language, the definition to explain what it is you're feeling, but there is a pull, a calling to something greater, another, I don't know, 2.0 version of who you are when all of this is peeled away. And that is the journey. I feel like when we come back to those awakenings, the awakenings of what we didn't realize we could experience, the sensations, the ideals of realizing we're energetic beings and that energy is always all around us and that it doesn't die, it just moves into something else. It never, it entropies, it falls down in a way which allows us to let go of some of the ways we've held on to habits, behaviors, thoughts, feelings, but it wants to move into more. And if we're blocking ourselves from allowing more love, more of that frequency, more of our being whole within, then we don't have the full experience and we create a lot of the stress and struggle. What do you say to that? Because I know one of the things that we want to talk about was how people shift their reality quicker and a better way of living and being. And I think that's like the segue into that. So I'm curious to your take on that part.
Yeah, I do believe healing can happen a lot faster than traditionally understood. And I think is we're like you said, we're all energy. Everything is energy. It's the world is in 3D, so it's a very dense form of energy. But when you die, you go to dust, right? So it's all that sort of breakdown of particles. And we as human beings, like I said before, are sponges, and we pick up so much crap,
Yep.
right? And if you don't know how to get that out of your body, if you don't know how to counter that, if you don't know how to stop that in the first place from happening, you're picking up on all the other stuff that's going on around you, good and bad.
Yep.
I just posted something this morning on social media about how modeling can be destructive. And what I mean by that is, I've also in the field of education, many years in the field of education, is modeling is the most effective form of teaching someone and learning. So you watch somebody do something, they demonstrate, right? Apprenticeship, same thing, right? It's the most powerful way to learn. Second one is storytelling. So you hear about somebody doing something, right? So it's a milder form than PowerPoints with, techniques and strategies.
Yeah.
Where it's destructive is, I believe, modeling. We tend to model our parents, and it's not about putting down parents, but it's
No.
like we grew up with how they behaved, and we
Right.
learned how to behave like that. My family wasn't so great when it comes to modeling, and I modeled
Right.
that, bar none, at home and then afterwards, both two sort of like not the best ways to behave.
Right.
And when we start to recognize that stuff, holy, does it shift? It
Yeah.
shifts,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to put down anybody's services or anything, but hey, 3 years of therapy probably is not going to help you, right? It's understanding, like you said, how we are these conduit of messages, of energy. And if we learn to preserve that in ourselves, and so what I do is I help clearing it out. Like in my one-on-one sessions, I'm just ripping other people's energy out. Like it's so embedded in some of these people. It feels like that, right? Or I
Yeah.
take off big metal plates off their back. It's very strange, but it's like you've got to get that stuff out of you. And
Yeah.
I think just awareness can also help shift some of that stuff. Just say, I'm tired of this. This is an old one I learned a long time ago. Think of it like a pink chainsaw, and people's, tentacles, or, whatever their energies in you, just what, with a pink, like, which is love. No, I want you out of my system. I want you out of my system. I want you out of my system. Detach, and you cannot come back. So that type of intention is, I think, very self-preservation, preserving, and also putting this big white light around you, and just say nobody's energy can come in unless I ask them to. Now,
Yeah.
beautiful, intimate moments, that's all fine. Or hugs with your children, that's great, right? It's anybody who is dumping their stuff on you. Oh my gosh, that energy comes right into your stuff.
Right.
So I think it can be a lot quicker with this awakening, and I think it's meant to be said that like that out there. It's really meant so people can start shifting themselves.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, and I'm sure that you are too in this work, because there's always these different approaches to exactly what you said, these filters of perception, these things we've been a sponge for until we realize we no longer need to be, right? And really stepping into what I call the self mastery of realizing how the mind and the body actually work. And we can be so afraid of that sometimes when we realize that, nothing starts without a thought, and the thought creates a feeling, and the feeling creates then a meaning. Do we like it or do we not? And then how we associate with that meaning is how we think about it over and over again. And the things that we think about most become the beliefs in our body. The beliefs in our body, the ones that aren't serving us, are also other examples of, like, it's like a magnet that just starts to attract more of the things we don't want. But we also have the ability to attract more of the things we do by our intention. And I will say, like, when we're not setting intention, then we're letting the inner tension rule the bus. And truly, it's just the mind not having direction. So the body is begging for a decision, right? To a commitment to these daily practices, to awareness of how we're being when things aren't going well, how we're being when things are going great. What was the determining factor? And I think so many of us, my hands raised until I learned this work, was just going through life, in an illusion, in a programmed state. And one day I had gone through some tough times, some storms, as we all do. And I just realized this time around, I'm doing it different. I'm going to find things I'm passionate about. I'm going to find work that I love. I'm going to put myself on the edge and create a business out of these things because I know they can happen. And I didn't even know what I was talking about, honestly, but I felt it. And there was another way. And so I think that's the easiest place we begin when we question, there's got to be more. Who the heck am I now? Right? And the discovery is endless. And so the other thing I want to address, there's many other things I want to ask you, but the other thing I wanted to address was when we go through healing work, and if you've been someone who's been through healing work, it's not that we're not going to always be healing, but we don't have to go back. When we get to the place where we can breathe a little more, we've let go of the deepest shadows, we've walked through that, there's a moment where we can choose to create something next. And so the nuance in what I was saying previous is that we can sometimes get stuck in living in the past pattern when it's really rising up for us to move forward. And moving forward will always move anything out of the way that needs to be moved. We don't have to go back and look for it. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's part of the evolution, right? And
Right.
again, it's also back to modeling, like find model after somebody that lives this life that you really know how they live, not what you see on social media, which is always fantastic, right?
Right.
You don't know what's going on, but I just said recently too, worship something.
Yeah.
Start worshiping something, right? And in a good way, like
Loving it.
give thanks to something. You don't have to like buy into the dogma and go with a really strict practice or anything, but start worshiping something. Like even if it's like the Egyptian goddess and gods, like just listen to their wisdom.
Yeah.
It's the old wisdom, I think, that's starting to come through now too. All the old
Yes.
civilizations, right? They know, man. They've been through it all. They've connected a lot more than what we are right now, and they have true and tried ways that they were able to elevate their life. But there's truths, like read their books, read their stories,
Yeah.
and find something like, even a Celtic goddess, like whatever works for you. Find something, God,
Feed the
listen to
curiosity.
those words. Yeah, listen
Yeah.
to those words, and that becomes a new truth and reality that you can live by.
Yeah. And you might just find that it starts making sense, not even from the brain, but from the cells in your being, which I
Yeah.
think is really powerful. I love that you said that. I feel like, well, there's three things I want to address: channeling, teams and guides, and then I just wrote ancient wisdom because and in full vulnerability and disclosure, like we were talking beforehand, and I think one of the biggest things for me to let go of in this last few years, especially the last couple years, was okay, I've been on this journey, I've awakened, I have studied this ancient wisdom, I love it, I feel like it channels through me at that love consciousness, that harmony, but through like ancient meanings, ancient descriptions in ways I'm not even 100% sure all the time. But really learning that channeling is like one of those normal things that we do. It's when you're in the zone. If you're doing something you love and you just lose all track of time, if you're, physically playing a sport and you're locked and loaded, you're in that zone. Like those are ways that humans really connect to that. And I love it because I was so curious about it in the beginning. And I was so curious as in someone else could do it and I wasn't sure I could. But as my gifts opened up, it was part of my intuition flowing. But learning to own that, step into that, and be all the expression of what would be considered against the norm has been a lot of that place of healing for me. Do you find that? I was going to say, just with I'm older, I'm 55, and I'm like, and in those eras, I'm finding that that's probably one of the hardest things for women of my age when they come into this work is like nobody knows me from this past experience or this experience that feels like all of me, right? So I get afraid to step into that just a little bit more because
Mm-hmm.
that would mean I totally have to let go. But I think there's so much goodness in that conversation. So before I ask about teams and guides, like when did you realize you were channeling? And what did that kind of go together? Maybe I'm not having to separate this whole little piece of conversation, but my curiosity for you is you feel so and hear so clearly from guides or others, teams of guides, and that information comes channeling through. When did you first realize that that was actually the thing happening for you? And what I really want to ask is like, how do you expand that? Because that curiosity, just for myself, that curiosity is like, what's it like to know the team of guides? Who are they? How many are there? There's all the curiosities that kind of come, and I'm just gonna like pin that there and let you take it. But that's kind of what wanted to come through as far as this next piece of conversation.
I think this is an excellent question, and I don't think it's talked about a lot. It most certainly is taught in more, serious spiritual programs. I am taking one right now. I'll refer to in a second. And when I first started doing it is when I was doing Reiki 30 years ago, and I just started getting these messages for these people, and not only current messages, like in their current for their current life, but their past lives. It was I'm thinking, what is this? And I would tell them, things I saw, things I pulled out of their body, messages that came through. And again, because I'd grown up with, a house full of psychics, that didn't startle me any, but I just thought this is really cool. And then when I started to share this with my clients, it was clicking for them, and I went, oh, yeah, this is really neat. Even though some of it was sort of bizarre, they went, that makes so much sense. That's why I have this urge to do blah. And I said, well, probably. So for me, I've really learned that my biggest drive in my spiritual development quest, like 14, 15 months ago, was I wanted to know who are the guides out there. I want to know what the heck is going on up there. What are the realms? Who am I talking to? I wanted it more defined and
Yeah.
articulated. and it's happening, right?
Mm,
So I'm learning about, I just need to define more for me. Maybe other people don't. So I'm taking an advanced spiritual training right now, and it is understanding using the ancient civilizations teachings.
mhm.
So all the way from, Egypt to Buddha to Mayan to, and they had initiatives. And so initiatives were the spiritual ones that would open up and they would learn how to communicate. I mean, these civilizations, I mean, where did they get half this information? And why did some of their massive structures all look the same? And
Right.
they were thousands and thousands of miles away
Let
from
alone
each
the
other.
massive structures.
And so I'm taking this right now, and I like it because it's based in sort of historical science, I guess, in a
Yeah,
way, and learning about the different realms, learning about the different beings, spiritual beings, and it really does help me and to be able to define, so I know who I'm talking to. Before, I didn't know. I would just sort of refer to it as angels, and it's probably right. It probably was angels, but it could have been somebody's mother coming in. And I like to have a little bit more control of that, about who's around me and who's in my realm when it comes to, other energetic bodies.
yeah,
I'm very careful with what I take on, and so yeah, that's what I'm trying to refine that more for myself. And for me, it's just going to be a lifelong journey. I just love it. I don't need to know everything tomorrow, right?
right.
I don't
Yeah,
need to do this, but so that's where I'm getting more of the crisp messages, especially when I ask.
yeah,
And I used to just ask, and then one answer would come, or a short phrase would come. Now I ask another question on top of that, and like I have a conversation with these people, right? Like 30 years ago, I wouldn't have said this. I know I would have been locked up, but I'm having a ball, and I'm just sharing the messages that I get out there on social media and with my followers as well, my subscribers, my
yeah.
sacred messages email service I have. And I love it because it's really helping to inform me as well.
Yeah, and you know, I could talk to you about this forever. I mean, I obviously have to have you back because we could probably riff on a lot more things. Um, but for the people like, and you listeners, like, are you resonating with this? What's your experience has been? We'd love to know as you comment in on the podcast as you listen in. It's always curious to me to know what experiences people are having, and so having a voice to share that, like, oh my gosh, this makes sense, or this is resonating with me, is really powerful along your journey. Because I think those questions, when we get quiet with ourselves, it's really learning to discern that connection, your higher self versus any guides that are in there. And it can take a minute to really get yourself feeling safe in your nervous system to receive that. And I know that's really been a part of my journey because it hit so hard and fast. And I'm just learning the next thing along the way. So, coming to you or someone like you for guidance, right, and really helping to assimilate and put that together can be really powerful, which is why I'm glad we brought this up today, because it not only is part of the work that you do, but because of your curiosity, then the answers begin to flow. And I think that we all have this access to
Oh
higher
yeah.
intelligence, ancient wisdom. Are we willing to access it? And do we feel safe? The safety that's coming up is that part of us that is just needing the nurturing and the trust and the tools in this lifetime to be able to build that foundation so that can grow. And I would say, I want to let you answer this question. What would you offer to the listeners out there who might be at that next level of wanting to know a little bit more? What would you invite them into to help along their journey as well with the curiosity versus the skepticism to kind of move that into the next level for them?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I was just starting to think like maybe it's a workshop I could offer, and
Hmm.
I can just explain it a lot deeper, but also I can do distance healing. So if we go into this I call them healing meditations. They're both guided meditations and healings at the same time, but have them practice it, but
Yeah.
also try to explain it to them as much as I know, right? Try to explain to them what that whole realm looks like. If we're going to get into spirituality, they're spirits, right? And they're everywhere around us, including our higher self and our guardian angel. They're all there. And I totally agree. I used to be scared of it. It's like, I hope nothing transpires in front of me, like nothing comes into solid form, because I'm just going to scream and jump out of my skin.
Oh my God,
So I'm
so
always like, don't do that to me, okay? You know how
right.
you glimpse something on the side of your eye? It's like, nah, don't do that. I'm not ready for that. So, but they're not having to incarnate so much anymore. the higher spirits. They used to have to back in this in the ancient times. They would have to embody into somebody. They don't have to so much because we can rise up now and meet them,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm doing, and that's what you're doing, and most certainly I can teach other people how to do that as well. So
I love
yeah, if there's enough demand for it, I think I could share that and take them through an experience with it as well, a safe, like you said, how to be safe, how to feel
how
safe.
to feel safe.
I
Yeah.
definitely work on that, because there's also, darker energies you don't want to work with. There's also, pesky spirits you don't want to work with, so it's those incantations and those intentions. This is who I want to work with, just the highest,
Yeah, absolutely.
things like that. And so you feel a little bit more safe. And
And we
it's
do
very
have
different.
I'm so sorry. And we do have that control. We get to decide. We're at will. And
Mhm.
so not letting fear take over, right? But coming back into your power. And I really love these conversations because people have access to you. They have access to people that they can bring into their community or have conversations with. So the conversation can be open. So we don't have to live in that fear, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful because there's so many obstacles already in ways that fear is presented in our life. It's wonderful when we can know that we can choose something higher for ourselves. And I think that's the bigger picture of this work in general, is so we can have this thriving life, not this struggling life, which is so good.
And I want to end this, I want to qualify this, that for people to think about this is that we chose to come to earth as spiritual beings. We chose to come here and do this hard work. We're actually quite revered by the higher spirits.
Yes.
And every now and then I'm cheeky and I'm going, you come down here and do it. It's like, it's not easy. I did not have an easy upbringing. I did not do well through my young adult. I had a lot of anger, and it was just, it's just a waste of time. And I say that even to this day. It's like, oh, it's meant to be a life lesson. It's like, okay, well, enough of it. Like, let's just go on with it. It's going to be easier up there. It's not like I'm want to commit suicide or anything, but it's like, um, so that made me say, well, then make it easier, Kelly. Then
Yeah.
make it easier, right? As opposed to I'm dragging all this stuff with me.
Yeah.
But we're here. We're actually very special here, and we are going through all this stuff. So if you take on that role and responsibility and going, okay, let me dump all the junk as best I can, learn from it. This is how the world works. It's not how I'm going to live anymore. And then I'm going to turn around and start sending the light back out.
Mhm.
I think that's why things are going so much quicker, because they want us to have that awareness.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree.
It's not
So,
like just the select few are allowed to have that and be that. No, I think
oh,
everyone can.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, to me, that's really what matters, and we get to have any experience we want while we're on this planet, and we get to also be the light, and so shining the hope and the possibility for others. I know you had a few gifts that you wanted to invite
Hmm.
the audience into, and I'd love you to share those as well as anything else that you want to wrap up this episode with. Any last beautiful messages?
Thank you. Yes, I do have a couple of free gifts, free services. One is sacred messages. And what I do is I share by email to my subscribers whatever download I get and about some really significant topic. And usually it's an email that has a bit of a brief, and then I click to an audio file where I can just talk like this. It's just so much easier than trying to write it in script.
Yeah,
So that is something that I do as well. And then the other one is a actually healing meditation. So it's a guided meditation with I infuse healing energy into, and we all do, not just me. So through me, and it's about healing of self, and I help you discover your true self. And I
beautiful.
do it through a process that it can be very revealing, but I do try to do it in a safe way as well, where you sort of rip the facade off.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
so beautiful. What beautiful
Yeah.
gifts. Well, where can people find you? Where do you hang out most?
I hang out, well, on my website is kellyedmonds.com, Edmonds with an O, Kelly with one Y. And I'm also mostly on Facebook. I'm over there quite a bit, and Instagram. I just post the same thing on Instagram. But my biggest following is on Facebook, and I'm under Kelly Edmonds as well.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes for you guys to find them with ease. Kelly, thank you. This time went so fast today, and I feel like you're needing to come back so we can have more conversations. But I appreciate all of your time, your wisdom, and your beautiful heart. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. It's been a delight. So I'm hoping this helps people, but I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Likewise. And so, with that, any last messages for the ending of our episode today?
Yeah, it's just take everything that I said today about how quickly we can change and shift for the better and be brave and take that journey, take that route. And trying, it's going to be really hard when you start opening and feeling lighter, and then you're sort of still in that job or you're still in that relationship, and it's scary, like, do I have to leave all this? I think, your heart will tell you what is best, and when one door closes, another one opens. But you can never unhear or unsee or unknow what you just heard today. It's there, and just let that sit with you. You don't have to make a decision by next Friday, right? You can take
Right.
your time
Yeah.
and start to blossom inside and start to understand. Sometimes when we start to blossom, we attract, like you said, really good things into our life as well.
Yeah, I feel like what's meant for you will find you. And so if you found your way here, we're really excited that you're able to take what you will from this messaging today and just let it guide you on your journey. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you again next week for a new episode, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye for now.